I'd like to go back to Jon Stewart, who, as much of a dork as he is funny. I will give him credit for that. So this is a video of Jon Stewart, who was recently talking to, it was the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Kathleen Hicks. And because Elon Musk's Doge is now about to be turned onto the DOD, and of course everybody's freaking out. And this is someone with Trump derangement syndrome basically asking, what's the problem with an audit? So let's watch this.
When was this done, by the way? Unfair questions of some.
I have it on 2x speed. What's that?
When was this done, by the way? Do you know? 2023.
Oh, this is actually old. I didn't realize. I thought this was recent. So this is okay. That explains why Jon Stewart's talking about it, because Trump didn't bring it up yet, and once Trump brings it up, now the liberal commentators are supposed to act like it's evil. So this is before.
Jon Stewart has actually been objective on occasion about Trump too. I mean, he's lauded Trump for his efforts.
He gets punished for it, is what I've noticed. But I mean, we'll see. Let's listen to this.
Are these? Do you feel like these are unfair questions of somebody within a department of that size and scope?
Do you feel that it's somewhat unfair?
You have a particular thing you really want to talk about, and you're asking me other questions. But I don't think it's unfair to ask me about the audit. It's absolutely the case that the United States military should be able to pass an audit, and we've got to be on that pathway to get there.
But don't you think that does speak to the larger point that we're trying to get at, which is good journalism uncovers corruption? And
okay, I mean, good journalism does uncover corruption, but I'm not sure these two things are linked. An audit is not.
But they are.
Okay, so you need to explain to me, do you understand what an audit does and the degree to which it is linked to the question that you're asking?
I believe so.
Okay, go ahead. Give me your explanation.
No, I don't mind learning. So what I would suggest is that the audit that they have in the military doesn't really look at whether or not there's efficacy. It's just whether they got delivered the thing that they ordered. And
that is any audit. That is any audit. That is true.
But generally, those audits aren't $400 billion for Raytheon and $1.7 trillion for a plane that doesn't seem to be doing. Like, there is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse within a system.
Audits and waste, fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. So let's decompose.
So do you see the word game she's starting to play here? Technically, yes, audits and waste, fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. That's correct. But she's totally dancing around the fact that there's billions and billions and billions of dollars that can't be accounted for.
Yeah, she's very defensive.
Go ahead.
She seems suspiciously defensive and shrieky already.
Me on
sure. So an audit is exactly what you just described, which is, do I know what was delivered to which place?
Right.
The ability to pass an audit, or the fact that the DOD has not passed an audit, is not suggestive of waste, fraud, and abuse.
Should we comment or just let John comment on?
Keep it rolling.
Okay.
That is completely false right there. So
what is
now is a question of, it's suggestive that we don't have an accurate inventory that we can pull up of what we have where. That is not the same as saying we can't do that because waste, fraud, and abuse has occurred.
So in my world, that's waste.
How is that waste?
If I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means you are not responsible. But if you can't tell me where it went, then what am I supposed to think? And when there has been reporting.
Right. So in her world, if you don't know where it went, you must assume that it was spent well and responsibly. That's the default assumption that is obviously completely insane, but that's sort of the bureaucrats' defensive thinking.
Well, and
right?
I want to put
just because we can't show you, you can't prove that it was wasted. And he's saying, no, that is the proof.
Well, and let me put this in perspective, without giving too much information about myself, or I can get doxxed. I own a business where I am responsible for handling a small amount of other people's money. Okay? And it's cash. I'm responsible for handling a certain amount of cash for other people. And it's a industry where the state will come in, and I mean they'll audit everything in the business, but they will say, show us your ledger of the cash that you're holding for these other people. And I need to have it accurate to the penny. I have to have a receipt for everything purchased, and the amount of money that it says on that ledger needs to be the amount of money that's actually in that person's slot, right? And if it isn't, you know what citation I get, Nima? Financial abuse.
Yeah.
I get financial abuse because it is assumed that if I can't audit, if the audit doesn't account for everything that was purchased and the amount of money that was there, it is assumed that I abused it. If I'm a penny off, 1 penny, right? So to the point that you were making, Nima, the fact that it's like, well, just because we can't account for it doesn't mean we wasted it or we abused it or it's corruption or something like that.
No, it's complete bullshit.
You can't necessarily connect the two things. Like, what? Go ahead.
It's obviously complete bullshit. And this is also part of these DEI hires that we saw in the Biden era. They can't even cover up the corruption intelligently. Right? And this woman is shrieking and giggling and smirking.
And making John feel like he's the idiot here.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
you're just
and
so
talking
dumb. You
down.
just don't get this. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what an audit is? I'm happy, and he says, "I'm happy to learn," and she giggles about it.
Let's keep going.
I mean, this is not. Look, I'm not saying this is on you, and that you caused this, but I think it's a tough argument to
I'm pretty
make
sure I
that
didn't cause it.
an $850 billion budget to an organization that can't pass an audit and tell you where that money went, like, I think most people would consider that somewhere in the realm of waste, fraud, or abuse, because they would wonder why that money isn't well accounted for. And especially when they see food insecurity on military bases, and they see...
You want to talk about that? Because that's a good... we should be talking... I mean,
Well,
I'm
it's
trying to
Whoa, can we talk about something else? Let's
Yeah.
talk about something else.
Look at the shiny. Yeah, so now she
understand
wants to
where
deflect.
you're trying to go, other than the dollars, which really bother you.
I think it
The
doesn't
dollars
really...
seem to really bother you, John. Why do the dollars bother you? It was so weird. Why are you so worried about dollars?
bother me. I think it's all connected.
Okay.
I think
tell
when
me,
I
tell
look...
me that story. Tell me how you're thinking
Well,
about
he
that.
just
when
did.
I see a State Department get a certain amount of money and a military budget be 10 times that, and I see a struggle within government to get people like more basic services, and then that department that got that, I mean, we got out of 20 years of war and the Pentagon got a $50 billion raise. Like, that's shocking to me. Now, I may not understand exactly the ins and outs and the incredible magic of an audit, but I'm a human being who lives on the earth and can't figure out how $850 billion to a department means that the rank and file still have to be on food stamps. Like, to me, that's fucking corruption. I'm sorry. And if...
And then the level of common sense coming out of his mouth is like, obviously the crowd claps to this, right? Mm-hmm. But he's like, I'm a human being and I live on Earth. I mean, I don't think I think the insult went over her head there. Yeah. But she basically, like, you can use whatever fancy language you want, but you can't account for the money we're giving you. And for some reason, the bottom people aren't getting paid enough. Like, what? Like, how do we square this circle?
Like, if that blows your mind, and if you think like that's like a crazy agenda for me to have, I really think that that's institutional thinking, and that it's not looking at the day-to-day reality of the people that you call the greatest fighting force in the world. So I get back to this idea of, like, I'm not looking to pick a fight with you, but I am surprised at that the reaction to these questions are, you don't know what an audit is, bucko. Like, that's just weird to me.
Okay. On food insecurity,
Change the subject.
Okay.
Change the subject.
On food, though, let's talk about food. That's what she's competent to talk about. Yeah. What a dimwit. I mean, these people are idiots. So,
I think we've seen enough of that. Well, to get the point, so obviously, I mean, I don't know if she's a DEI hire. I don't know if she's too dumb to know what's going on, or she's super smart and she's trying to, word salad and obfuscate and dance circles around John. I don't know where she is on the spectrum, but that interaction was so clear that even though it's intuitively obvious to human beings that if you can't account for a large amount of money that was given to you to achieve a certain goal, that fraud is assumed.
Well, look, this
in
is
the same example that I just gave for myself, right?
This is the kind of bureaucrat that the deep state wants to have in charge up there. This woman who has no clue what's going on, and whose best response is to giggle about a failed audit and billions spent, and to minimize and humiliate the other person who's asking the question. I mean, it's unsuccessfully attempt to humiliate the inquirer. This is a dream for the military-industrial complex. This is exactly who they need up there in part. Because did you think that this dimwit is ever going to understand how to decipher the complex structure of military spending and military waste and fraud and corruption?
Well, and then something on an audit, like, an audit just tells you, it doesn't say anything about the purpose of the audit is not about efficacy. It tells you about, that we can have an inventory of what we have. Well, having an inventory of what you have is required for efficacy, right? A component of efficacy is making sure you have an audit to know, A, what you have, and that, B, the things that you were supposed to be buying are the things that you're buying. Because if you don't have that, people know, hey, nobody's looking, so I'm less accountable for this money, right? Even okay, it doesn't prove that there's waste, fraud, and corruption. It does, like he said, it does at least prove waste, because if I know that the money I'm spending isn't mine, it's coming in, nobody's looking over my shoulder, I'm not going to be that careful with it. That's like the most optimistic description of what could possibly be happening in that scenario.
Especially in government. I mean, you were talking about the scrutiny over what you're doing in the private sector. This is government which is notoriously abusive and fraudulent. Notoriously, it has incentives to keep spending and wasting money without performing. That's the whole problem with government that everyone is aware of since time immemorial. And she's acting like that doesn't exist. You're stupid to assume that.
Well, and yes.
The question for that lady I would have is, so you tell me, at what level are you going to be concerned? So we have, apparently, she's not upset about what's going on at the moment. She seems to be pretty happy with everything. There's no proof of fraud. Tell me what you would consider fraud, because, I'd like to hear.
Well, let's talk about food.
Justify
let's
that.
talk about food, Nima.
No, let's talk about food. Yeah, let's talk about food so I can do a quick speech about how much I care about the food insecurities and how we're going to tackle that issue. Hands on, blah, blah, blah.
And I think this is really indicative. It's really illustory. Wow, I don't even know how to use that word anymore. Of how the real battle that we're facing. And part of the real battle that I think we're facing is that the human beings that live on Earth, as Jon Stewart just described, are approaching this with a sense of, how do I make sense of things? And they say, okay, well, I'm going to go talk to that person and have him help me make sense of things. And if I show him that things don't make sense, that person will go, aha, things don't make sense. You're right. Let's try to make sense of these things. That's the assumption that you and I have, right? That's not what they work on. That's not what these bureaucrats work on. What these bureaucrats work on is I'm in the smart person club. And this is the Charles Merriam idea. He calls it the community of the competent, which draws from Plato's Republic of the Philosopher Kings, which is I'm in the smart person club. When I speak, it's true. You are not in the smart person club. When you speak, it's quackery. It's charlatanism. It's stupid. It's rubish.
It's conspiracy theory.
It's conspiracy, and it doesn't matter. Like the actual content of what's being, this idea of let's objectively look at the facts on the table, and then the facts will speak for themselves, sort of thing. That's not what's going through their heads. What's going through their heads is we're right. Our agenda is unbiased and objectively correct, and anything that comes out of your mouth is stupid.
Yeah, we're the good guys.
They literally believe it. Like, look at her; she's just giggling. Like, I just you don't even understand what an audit is, Bucko. And I think what's so difficult, and when I say this is the real battle, is emotionally, for most of us, it's so hard for us to wrap our mind around that another human being could be like that. I've said this before. I don't even know if I've said it on the show. Good people have a massive error, a massive failure in that they project their goodness onto evil people.
Absolutely, yeah.
They make the assumption like, okay, a normal person is going to rationally want to, do the good thing and make sure they're not lying and make sure blah, 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 blah. So therefore, this person can't possibly be doing that. No, wrong. The person is a complete narcissist, thief, psychopath who will lie to your face confidently and laugh at you for being such an idiot, even though what's coming out of their mouth is pure garbage. And the psychological impact of that is you who think twice about what you're thinking, right? Not just you, Nima, you listening, you're self-considerate, you're self-reflective. You're like, wow, this person, I really need to think about what I'm saying because this person is acting like I'm a complete idiot. Maybe I am a complete idiot. Maybe I need to think about this twice. They're not doing that. They don't have that self-reflection.
Yeah. Jon
right?
Stewart, he expressed
it's just a weakness that they exploit. Go ahead.
He expressed it nicely at the end where he was genuinely surprised. But he thought at the very least she was going to raise the appearance of caring about what he's talking about. And he found out that that's absolutely not the case. And he found out that she's going to run her show regardless. She's going to run her game on him and ridicule and minimize what he's saying. And he was just genuinely surprised. And I mean, I'm kind of surprised because if you have a competent elite, then you have people who can actually do a good job at pretending to care, I think.
Right. So that segues into, and again, this starts to get at the system because, we've talked about the administrative state. That woman was a perfect example of the administrative state, right? This is an unelected person who's in charge. Deputy, she's the vice person in charge, right? But close enough. She's in charge of $850 billion fucking dollars. And she's just an airhead, right? She's unelected. She could sit on her ass. Well, okay, there's a current administration that doesn't like what I'm doing. Don't care. I'll wait 4 years. Blah. Okay, now the other administration's in charge. Now I'm good again, right? This whole system is set up where this bureaucracy, this administrative state, does not need to be responsive to whatever side of the political aisle, of the partisan aisle, is in charge.
So these are the people who are behind the schemes protesting right now that the money is being pulled. I just want everyone to be aware of that. If you think of a USAID worker or DOD or CIA worker losing their job, their money, it's people like this idiot that we just saw there this arrogant, smug lady talking down to Jon Stewart about a very important issue,
Right.
a very important,
vastly
issue.
important issue. Everyone, please like, comment, and subscribe to help us grow this channel. I think we cover a lot of good stuff. We're covering ideas that you're not hearing anywhere else. Economic ideas, historical ideas, systematic politics ideas you're not hearing anywhere else.